Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. You're listening to a special presentation of PHLY Flyers. My name's Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games. Joining me as always, Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor. And today we are joined by the Flyers president of hockey operations. It's Jonesy, the one and only Keith Jones. Jonesy, I can't look at you. Like, this is what you do to me. When we used to just be doing the morning show, I'd be like trying to, get my career going. He's just staring at me across the table, just trying to get me to laugh.
Come a long way, Bill.
Yeah, clearly. It's exactly the same pretty much. You've come a long way too, Jonesy. What has this adjustment been like? What's your day-to-day? How is it different?
It's different, obviously. It's felt natural, though. It's strange to say, but, if I think back to where I was a year ago at this time, kind of doing the same sort of things that you guys are doing. But it has been a natural progression. I'm really happy doing what I'm doing and really pleased with the way that our team is starting to come together and how hard that they've competed for us. But they've made it a little bit easier, the transition, just with how well that they've performed.
They've made it easy on everybody. If you're covering the team, losses go a lot slower than wins. This season's flying by a little bit, but you were kind of in this position a year ago, being in the media more. You have a lot of industry friends. How has that changed? Kind of like, do you have to deal with people different? Do they look at you differently? Like, okay, what are you trying to sell me now?
Yeah, not really. No, you still have, those relationships are important no matter what you're doing, whether you're in the media or, on the other side of it. Media connections are great, but also the connections that I was able to kind of establish by being in a position to meet people on other teams, et cetera, from presidents to general managers to head coaches to assistant coaches to the players. I think all of those things matter. I think they make a difference, and they do come in handy in, kind of establishing relationships from a business perspective from the Flyers to another organization. I think that is something that we've been able to kind of use and continue to build on, and look forward to continuing to build more relationships with some of the guys I didn't know quite as well.
I guess we'll kind of transition into the more hockey-related questions. Obviously, it's been a crazy season, but they always are, so not exactly surprising. We've talked Cutter Gauthier to death at this point, so I don't want to focus in on him, but I do want to focus in on the guy you guys got back for him in Jamie Drysdale. How early in the process, because both you and Danny have been very open with the fact that this didn't happen overnight, but how early in the process did you guys zero in on Jamie as a potential player to target if you had to execute on a Gauthier trade, and how, why did you decide that he was a prime target?
Yeah, so I would say early. He was one of our first. You're looking for, I think we talked earlier even in the preseason about how we wanted to build this team, and I believe I mentioned to you that we wanted to build our back end.
Yes.
So he was already in the back of our minds at that time. The one great thing about the job that I previously had was I was at ice level and did a bunch of Ducks games, and what I liked most and remembered most about him as a player, number one, he was skillful, right hand shot, all those things that you're looking for. But I loved his passion for the game, because you can see it when you're down at that level. Sometimes when you're up high, you're never going to see it. But I'm staring right at him, and I'm watching this kid go out and love playing the game. Probably started a little bit too young in a situation in Anaheim at that position where it's really difficult. Probably could have used a little more time in the minors. So there's things that we're going to have to continue to work with Jamie to get him to the point where we believe he's going to be in about 4 or 5 years. But there's a lot of positives that were there. So he was definitely someone that came to the forefront right away. And then it was a matter of targeting teams that had, a surplus of young players at that position. And there's not many. So Anaheim was kind of the type of fit. And, then you have the situation of the player that we had as an asset could really say no to anything. Your flexibility is very limited. Fortunately, in this case, it was a place that he wanted to go. So it worked, and we're really excited about having Jamie here. Really look forward to watching him work with Brad Shaw In talking to Shazi already, he's made mention of the questions that he asks are outstanding. He wants to learn, he wants to get better, and he is going to be a very good player for us for a long time at a position of need. So in the end, I think it all works, and I'm just super excited about the player's abilities and his attitude and his character. I think he has all the things that we want in a young flyer that should have many good seasons for us.
So I guess that's a perfect jumping off point, because you mentioned about the fact that we had a conversation in the offseason, and you had mentioned that the blue line core, that was what you wanted to build from. You wanted to basically have that be the core of a team. You mentioned actually Carolina, saying that that's a team that you want to kind of not necessarily model, but you point to and you say that's what you need to succeed. I guess what I want to know is, the defense back when we talked then, you made it clear you felt like the Flyers defense needed some work to get to that level. I guess Drysdale's a big addition. He definitely fills that out, but do you think you guys need more, or is it now more about developing Drysdale, York, Bonk, Yeager Zamula? Like, do you guys now think you have the pieces? Now it's about turning those pieces into the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the pieces. Hunter McDonald's another piece as well that's at Northeastern, and is going to be a beast when he gets here. Like, I'm so excited about him as well. Just the physical element that he has, the size, the strength, his skating ability. Bonk has had an incredibly good year. Just to be on the Canadian World Junior team as an 18-year-old defenseman. Very happy that we had a lot of great insight from my former teammate and friend and Dale Hunter on what Bonk projected to be. I think he has 16 points in his last 5 games. I watched his game the other night, and I'm really excited about him. That's another young right-handed shooting defenseman that is, when you project him, most likely a very solid defensive defender, but there's offense there too that might be starting to be tapped into from, his role with the London Knights. So those type of things get me really excited. And when you're not in a position where those guys are, demanding huge contracts, it also gives us the chance to allow them to build in a similar way that Carolina did it with their defense as well. So yeah, we do have an eye on the prize in that situation, and we want to continue to build our defense.
So do you think, I know on our show, we were talking obviously prior to the Drysdale deal that, the Flyers could really use another blue chipper on the back end, that'll be what solidifies it. Do you not necessarily, obviously everyone's looking to get more blue chippers. That's the point of, but is it maybe not as much of a necessity now because you feel like you have the pieces, at least from a talent standpoint, already?
I do think you continue to look. I do think that there's, sometimes opportunities are there that you don't want to pass up on. I don't think you can have too many defensemen coming. I do think that that's going to be a point of emphasis for us for a while. But it's not necessarily something that comes to the forefront right away. So we have some other areas that we want to continue to build now, including the center ice position. And that's something that we'll look at in the draft. And there's a lot of players in and around the area that we'll be drafting. Whether or not we have the second round pick from Columbus next year or not, we're going to have 2 or 3, possibly later round first picks or mid first round picks. And those are going to be important pieces for our future. And there is a lot of sentiment. There's a lot of players in the draft that is upcoming that have the potential to be, breakout players, not necessarily in the top 5. After you get past the top 3 or 4 players, there's probably 20 guys that, you could miss if you're picking early, and you could get lucky if you're picking later. So we're not overly concerned about where we're sitting and where we might draft this year.
Another thing I wanted to talk about, the Drysdale and targeting him as the guy in the Cutter Gauthier deal. Bob Murray was the GM who drafted him in Anaheim back in 2020. He was brought in as a senior advisor this summer. How much of a role did he play in terms of vetting Drysdale, convincing the rest of the front office that he was a good fit?
Yeah, he played a big role in it. Having the confidence that we were getting a character player, a person that would represent us well, both on and off the ice, was important. Also where he projected to be too, because Bob's very good at mapping out a blue line. I think if you look through his history with Anaheim, there's a lot of young defenseman that came up through his program and did an outstanding job, and then had big value when they were moved to different teams as the progression took place. I really trust Bob's opinion. I do think that played into this as well. Jeff Jackson, who's the president in Edmonton, used to represent Jamie, and told me in a conversation totally separate to anything about hockey that he was one of the best clients he ever had. And it was just brought up out of the blue. It was kind of funny, and prior to all this happening. So there was a lot of character checks that were done, and he passed with flying colors. And I'm excited for our fans to get to know him as well, because he's kind of a quiet kid, but he's definitely got a lot of personality, and he's going to be a big part of our future.
Kind of going back to Bob for a second, there were just so many changes that happened in the organization in the summer that kind of went a little bit under the radar. I guess, what exactly, I know he's senior advisor, but what exactly is his role, and how does he fit into the mix, and why did you think he was a good person to bring on board?
Yeah, I would say his role is identifying and finding defensemen all over the world. That's what his role is. Cool. That's his specific job for us. And I don't care where he goes. He can go anywhere he wants. Just find us blue liners like he did for Anaheim, Chicago prior to that. He's been around the game a long time, and he's happy. He's in a position where he's enjoying life, and also enjoying just not having to do everything, that Danny's having to do now. He's got the ability to have the flexibility to go and, every rink around the world and see what's out there. And he's been working hard. So there's a lot of good ideas that he brings to the table, but most importantly, it's his ability to identify players and project where they're going to be from one age to 5 years down the road, which is a talent that is not for everybody, and not everybody has, but Bob Murray definitely has that.
I just want to, I know we've talked the Cutter Gauthier thing to death, like Charlie said, but I just want to back up a bit to when everything comes out on that Monday. You guys get back from Sweden. The story is breaking. You've now acquired Jamie Drysdale. Cutter Gauthier is gone. He's in Anaheim. Are you surprised by the reaction? Because I'm constantly looking for the differences between this new era of Orange and the way things used to be. And I gauge a lot of the fan reaction on just what I hear. And people aren't pissed at you guys. Right. They don't think the Flyers screwed this up, which is a departure from the way things have been. Because you were up front with this, the way you got out in front of it and said what happened after it came out, you needed to maintain your leverage, obviously. But since then, everyone seems to just kind of be on board with this. Dude, we just watched win the gold medal at the World Juniors, top forward at the tournament, and everyone's like, yeah, I didn't want to be here. All right. Are you surprised by this reaction?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you want to be honest. And this was a hard one because we were trying to balance this, elephant in our room without it getting out to the public. So I would say I'm happy with the way it's gone so far. There's a long way to go, and that, the future of both players and our second round pick in the future, which was a nice, sweetener to have on the other side of that. But yeah, I'm not surprised. I know the city. I've been around it for a little while, and our people like honesty, and that's all we did. That was it.
Kind of changing gears for a second, talking about another person who you have strong connections with. One of the popular rumors that's been flying around for the past month or so, basically since he got let go from St. Louis, is that Craig Berube could end up back with the Flyers in some capacity. Obviously, he has long-standing connections with the organization. You guys are buddies. Is that something that could be in the cards at some point? I know he's been around here this past week.
Yeah, no, he's scouting for the Blues. He's not working for us. No, it's great to see him around too. But no, Craig is going to be a head coach again in the National Hockey League. He's got another year left with St. Louis, and in this business, there's a job that seems to be opening up all the time. It's not going to open up here. Torts has done an incredible job. But Chief is a super good friend of mine. We've been friends since our days in Washington. He is a terrific head coach. That's what he is. And he'll be back coaching again in the National Hockey League, but it's not going to be here. But great to see him around the rink, and I'm happy that a guy that likes to stay busy is being given that opportunity by Doug Armstrong in St. Louis to continue to help him out and give a different perspective from upstairs. But he's scouting for the Blues now, and he's not working for us.
I guess that speaks to, though, the quality of person that he is, that the Blues let him go, and yet they're still on good enough terms that he's willing to scout for them, and they are willing to have him scout for them as well.
Yeah, and that's what Craig is. I mean, for those of us that know him well, we're very fortunate to have a friend like him. He's a very loyal guy, and he's an outstanding hockey guy. He's another one that's fallen from the Dale Hunter tree, and there's quite a few out there. Rick Talkett's another one too, who spent time with Huntsy. So there's a lot there in connection to a love for the game, a willingness to do whatever it takes to help their team do and whatever they're asked to do for the team. So all the qualities that made him a great Flyer have made him a Stanley Cup champion coach. And hopefully he stays away from coaching for a little while, doesn't come in and help somebody in the East.
Changing gears and moving more towards the team as they are now. A little bit less bigger picture and more on the smaller side. John Tortorella gave an interview last week with NBC Sports Philadelphia. Really interesting, really insightful interview, so definitely recommend to our viewers and listeners to check that out. But one thing that he made clear in that interview was that the team's success this season isn't going to necessarily stop the front office from making some subtractions at the deadline if that's what the organization deems necessary. I guess speaking to that, this team has very much, I think, in the eyes of the hockey world, exceeded expectations. This team has come together. They're playing really good hockey on the whole. Are you worried at all that if the front office does some, let's call it strategic selling at or around the deadline, that it could send the team into, a little bit of a tailspin, knowing that, the front office isn't buying. They're not even standing pat. They're giving guys away. And this is a team that right now is very much in the playoff mix. I guess, is that a concern of yours at all?
I think we've been clear from the start that we recognize where we are. Danny was clear that it was going to be dictated by the players and how well they performed on whether or not it was sped up or not. The players have performed really well. But I think we've continued to send a clear message, including what Torts had to say the other day, that we're building for the future. We are building a team that we want to be a perennial playoff Stanley Cup contending type team. We're not there yet. We've continued to compete at a really high level. You play a team like Colorado, and you see when their big boys get going that we've got a little work to do. That's not lost on us. We recognize that. So we're going to do what's right for the future of the team. We're going to stand by that, but at the same time, we're going to recognize that our players have played really well for us, and that some guys have exceeded expectations, and some guys have us rethinking some things about certain individual players. But big picture-wise, we're going to do what's best for us, and there will be offers out there for our players. There already is, and there's a lot of interest in some of the players that we have, and that's a credit to the way that the players have performed.
How do you balance so much has been made of the culture of this team? Everyone seems to like playing with each other. The locker room has improved from last season, whatever the issues were there. It just seems as if the culture John Tortorella and the entire organization have built has improved. How do you balance? Yeah, but we are still building for the future there are guys in that locker room who are going to be here when this team's great again. You take something away from them that's like the boys earned the opportunity to try to make the playoffs this year. How do you balance that?
Yeah, that's a tough balance. You're threading the needle, and that's part of this job. And we have to really, through discussions and through collaboration with a group of people, small group, that are all aiming for the same thing. So there's I might have to be reminded of something. Danny might have to be. Hilf might remind us of something, and Torts. So it's kind of a nice thing to have when we get along as well as we do as a group. That's translated to the way our players get along, and that's really been a positive for us. So we will have to balance a few things. There's no doubt about that. But we're going to do the best we can to thread it properly, and come out on the other side in a better situation. Maybe not the next day or the day after that or 2 weeks after that, but down the road where we're consistently talking about a team that's competing for the Stanley Cup.
Josie, I feel like right now, and this is just in my conversations with fans, both in real life and on social media, it just seems like a lot of fans they don't really know what to think about this team because, they've been told that the Flyers are rebuilding. They keep hearing that, the focus is on the future. It remains on building the best Flyers team, a few years down the road, not just trying to maximize now. But, then they watch the Flyers take apart the Stars, a team that is a legitimate Stanley Cup contender and didn't beat the Avalanche, but hung pretty close with them, outshot them, outplayed them for a lot of that game. And they start to wonder, what if this team is already there? And I guess what I'm asking is, do you ever find yourself asking that question that, what if we are better than we think right now?
They do catch you. They do catch you. There's no doubt. Like the Dallas game is an example of everything going right. Every player had jumped. Every player made the right play. Every decision made on the ice was outstanding. It was a clinic. That's as good as we can play, and that's as good as any team in the league can play, but it's one game. So having to consistently play that way to beat the powerhouse teams in our league is a challenge. So that's something that we really have to look at a big picture, step away from the trees and really dig into it. But these guys give you a lot to think about, which has made them such a likable group. There's different ages on players. There's a lot that goes into the decision making of where this team heads in the future, but couldn't be prouder of the way the guys played. They make you feel good. I think they've made our fans in many ways feel good about watching them, and that's what brings people back. So the foundation is being laid. There's no question about that. The culture is better, and I would put our culture up against any other team in the league. There's no doubt that that's benefited us. And now it's just about continuing to keep an eye on the future and making sure that we make some pretty insightful decisions here over the next couple of years.
Jonesy, the big picture I'm focused on right now is the big picture on the cover of the Money and Power Hockey News. What world am I living in? That Keith freaking Jones is on the cover of the Money and Power issue. Do you ever just have to take a step back and be like, what world am I living in?
I've never lived my life like that. I've just kept going. Sometimes if you ever stop, then you might look at it and go, wow, what am I doing here? Maybe I shouldn't be here. But I was like that when I played. I was like that when I got into broadcasting. I was not very good when I started in broadcasting and eventually became good enough to get, a bunch of jobs. But I've never taken it for granted. And I've always appreciated being around the game. My friendships in the game are really important to me. And my friendships outside of the game are really important to me. So, no, I don't. I kind of laugh, this is the real world, but that doesn't seem like it when you see something like that. So, no, it's not something that goes to my head. I can tell you that.
That's outstanding to hear. We have anything else, Charlie?
I think we're good.
Okay. Awesome,
all right,
guys. Good to catch up.
Jonesy, we'll see you next week, and I'm pretty sure every week after that.
Stop it, Billy.
I think we have a monthly. We'll see how it goes. But thank you very much for joining us, Keith.
Thanks.
And keep up the great work.
You too. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks so much.
We all city like the mayor.